Thank you, Francesca. There is another question. I think it is about Libya again. The question goes, an additional problem is that Europe is not in line. For example, France's position is different than the official EU position.
I think that specifically Libyan case, Syria's too, but Libya in particular, shows the great contradiction of European policies. It shows that Europe has not a common foreign policy. And for example, I don't know if everybody knows, but in Libya there are at least two governments. One in the West, which is the UN-based and recognized by many countries like Italy, France too, in theory. And the Eastern government, and the, let's say, strongman of the Eastern government is General Khalifa Haftar. Should belong to explain all the regional balances of the conflict, but it's not just an economic conflict. It's also a religious one, because the government of the East is backed by Egypt, Russia, and let's say Emirates, while the government of Tripoli is backed by the United Nations, most of the European countries, and Saudi Arabia, and mainly Turkey. Since Turkey decided to be part of the conflict in Tripoli, for example, the situation completely changed in the last, let's say, 1.5 years. So the question is the right question on Libya. How can we have a common foreign policy if the two main countries which have interest on Libya, which are Italy and France, have two opposite positions in Libya? And the opposite positions are not just in theory, it depends on specific interest in economic interest, I mean, in Libya. I always say, talking about Libya, that Italy and Libya are linked not just in theory, but are linked for the oil. There is a pipeline starting from Melita in Libya, Western Libya, that physically linked Libya with Italy. And there is another, let's say, just ideal path on the same route, which is the route of migrants coming from Libya to reach Europe. We always talk and think about migrants, and we never talk, or at least not enough, about oil and about how oil influence our policies. At the same time, France backed the Eastern government because of the balance in the Sahel region, when they have a lot of interest too. And because they are, as we saw in the recent visit of al-Sisi in Paris, is one of the main allies of French government in Maghreb. So of course, what should the militia think when they see all this contradiction? To be honest, I worked there many times. For them, for Libyan institution, it doesn't exist Europe as an entity. It just exists who is in the table of negotiation. And who is in the table of negotiation depends on what and how much money you have to offer in exchange for something, which is oil or control of the borders or control of the southern borders, which is affected by jihadi groups, which is another problem of Libya.